You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. You know, to keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro. What's funny, though, is that Stern actually thought that was a compliment. Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one. This week on his radio show, Howard Stern defended wokeism, saying it's a compliment when someone calls him woke. Listen.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, dude, call me woke as you want. I'm not for stupidity, but I am woke, motherfucker, and I love it.
Oh dear, he swore. He swore that'll win over the woke.
Howard Stern in full panic after Gutfeld's truth bomb. The headline alone feels like a punch in the gut to the one-time king of shock radio, and Greg Gutfeld delivered that punch with showman precision. Viewers watched Stern, once fearless, blink when Gutfeld joked he'd rather vote for a nearby wall than for the host's chosen candidate. The pause that followed was louder than a studio siren. For decades, Stern thrived on never missing a beat. Yet in that instant, he seemed confused, wondering whether the wisecrack was praise or ridicule. That hesitation signaled a deeper shift, rebellious confidence replaced by uncomfortable doubt. The awkward moment stemmed from Stern's attempt to flatter Vice President Kamala Harris. Trying to highlight loyalty, he bragged on air that he would vote for anything she pointed at, even a blank wall. Gutfeld flipped the remark, quipping that equating Harris with drywall hardly sparkles as endorsement. Stern's delayed laugh revealed a slower reflex, surprising listeners who remembered the rapid-fire comic capable of dissecting any jab. Fans posting online described the exchange as the first crack in an armor polished by years of celebrity friendships and corporate partnerships. They wondered if Comfort had finally smothered his once legendary edge. That edge made headlines throughout the 1990s. Stern's studio resembled a carnival where bologna slices flew toward dancers, executives earned humiliating nicknames, and FCC fines piled up like trophies. He reveled in chaos, insisting that free speech required testing every boundary. Fast forward to 2025, and the same microphone now transmits tranquil chats about scented candles, gentle laughter with movie stars, and earnest praise for political talking points. Gutfeld described the transformation with a vivid image: a roaring lion shaved, declawed, and trained to fetch slippers. The shock jock, once feared by censors, now comforts the very gatekeepers who used to.
But Stern being holed up in his house that long, it explains a lot of things, like how you forget how other people live, especially in hard times like a pandemic. For the longest time, 2 years in fact, the same time Stern's been AWOL, I wondered where he went. Not physically, but mentally. I bet you did too. Remember his screeds about COVID? They were epic and angry and
Lockdown living accelerated the metamorphosis. While millions coped with layoffs and cramped apartments, Stern broadcast from a pristine beach mansion secured by private gates and filtered air. He scolded anyone reluctant to follow strict health mandates, insisting that germs lurked everywhere. Gutfeld chuckled that quarantine becomes easier when gourmet groceries arrive by drone and a panoramic ocean view cushions anxiety. The tone felt scolding, not relatable, and loyal listeners drifted. A host famed for championing outsiders suddenly sounded like a distant headmaster lecturing a weary class. The gap between his luxury and their struggle sparked resentment. Behind the polite cadence, Gutfeld spotted what he called performance penance. Old video clips of Stern in outrageous costumes or spouting taboo jokes resurface regularly online. Each time, Stern issues fresh apologies, sometimes choking up while promising to do better. Sincerity matters, yet constant repetition breeds suspicion that fear, not reflection, drives the mea culpas. Gutfeld joked that if librarians cataloged every apology, they would need a new wing labeled regret. Apologizing once may heal. Apologizing endlessly can feel like insurance against modern outrage mobs rather than evidence of growth. That calculation fuels a pattern Gutfeld brands BFR, blackface reparations. Comedians such as Jimmy Kimmel, Sarah Silverman, and Stern once thrived on shock, then veered sharply left as archival footage threatened reputations. Industry whispers claim advertisers prefer the softer image, paying premiums for safe, sponsor-friendly programming. Hollywood circles applaud the pivot and extend red carpet invites previously withheld. Critics counter that this sudden righteousness resembles a strategic costume change, like swapping leather for linen once the temperature rises. Rumors remain rumors, but they echo loudly among fans who feel the spontaneous danger drained away. Predictability soon replaced profanity as Stern's gravest offense. In his prime, no audience member could guess what came next. Prank calls to politicians, on-air stunts with farm animals, unscheduled rants at executives hiding behind glass.
My theory, wokeism is a contagion. Stern got it from Jimmy Kimmel, his new best friend, and Kimmel got it from his wife, and his wife got it from where you get all infections, a toilet seat. Kat, I find that his definition of wokeism is very simplistic. I mean, it's like, it's not about COVID jab.
We're going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated. F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Man, this guy makes Anthony Fauci sound like a Canadian trucker. But, maybe you should follow his next vaccine with a shot of Valium. But it's weird. He went from ridiculing the man to becoming him. No longer embracing rebellion, he French kisses regulation. He went from mocking a radio executive who was a rigid by-the-book a-hole that he named Pig Vomit to being Pig Vomit himself. He went from Howard Stern.
Today, his opinions march out with clockwork regularity, champion every mandate, condemn every conservative, praise whichever virtue trend tops social media charts. Gutfeld likened the timetable to a train schedule, efficient, on time, utterly devoid of thrills. When shock becomes scheduled, the pulse of anticipation flatlines, and a brand built on surprise loses its heartbeat. Stern's new caution extends beyond politics. Gutfeld painted the Fortress of Fragility, a soundproof studio filled with plush pillows of self-assurance, where raised voices register as threats rather than sparks. The man who once dared callers to insult him now blocks criticism on social feeds and praises content filters that keep conversations civil. Children listening in the car hear kindness, but longtime fans recognize timidity creeping in like fog, dulling every joke. Courage without vulnerability can harden. Vulnerability without courage melts. Gutfeld argued Stern has chosen the latter, trading steel for satin. Peer pressure from celebrity circles completes the cycle. Surrounded by actors who treat trending hashtags as moral currency, Stern mirrors their language, celebrating every new campaign before details settle. He mentions star-studded dinners, thanks stylists for wellness tips, and praises sequels fans never requested. Gutfeld said watching this courtship resembles a retired cage fighter gliding across a ballet stage. The form impresses, yet audiences crave the raw energy buried beneath polite poses. Fame can be addictive, and Stern's hunger for glamour now dictates scripts once forged in rebellion. Fans respond with quiet nostalgia and public silence. Online groups whisper that they miss the outrageous bits, but fear admitting it might invite scorn from newer listeners who celebrate the rebrand. Gutfeld joked that Stern's remaining audience feels like a club for people who crave slapstick yet speak in corporate buzzwords. The tension mirrors larger cultural questions. How do we let creators age without forcing them to erase the sparks that built their towers? Answers remain elusive, but the discomfort grows each time Stern laughs politely at a story that once would have triggered a gleeful roar. Legacy stands on trial. Stern claims maturity, yet Gutfeld counters that maturity means owning, not burying, a wild past. Imagine a guitarist known for smashing amps returning with an acoustic set and scolding fans for liking noise. Some might applaud the new direction, yet many will quietly miss the crash of splintered wood. If Stern truly believes in growth, he could fuse sharp wit with considered empathy. Instead, he often seems to erase the archive.
Remember, Stern used to throw bologna slices at strippers' butts. With accuracy, I might add. Now he's worried the possible leader of the free world can't handle his verbal foot rub. I wonder if he used to get this nervous for the strippers before he'd spank them on their bare asses with a dead fish.
presenting a version of history scrubbed clean for modern sensibilities. That selective memory feeds distrust. Stern's story doubles as a cautionary tale for rising creators who confuse provocation with principle. Shouting can attract crowds, but conviction keeps them listening. When trends shift and outrage rotates, only authentic beliefs anchor credibility. The young streamer who copies vintage Stern stunts without purpose may someday face a harsher backlash, lacking both the fortune and the experience to pivot gracefully. The lesson: cultivate ideas stronger than applause, because applause echoes but does not lead. So, has Gutfeld toppled a titan? Probably not. Legends rarely collapse overnight, and Stern retains contracts, influence, and undeniable storytelling skill. Yet the image of him blinking under a sarcastic spotlight will linger, proof that applause built on safety rings hollow when challenged. A microphone exposes hesitation faster than any camera, and the audience, even children riding in family cars, can sense doubt seeping through polished banter. Doubt, once revealed, spreads quickly. Perhaps the final act remains unwritten. Stern could embrace every messy chapter, admitting that jokes age and that the path from rebel to elder need not pass through fear. He might invite critics on air, risk an unscripted moment, and rediscover the thrill of not knowing what happens next. Or he might continue smoothing every corner, collecting polite praise while the spirit that launched his empire gently fades. Whatever he chooses, Gutfeld's truth bomb has detonated, and the echo forces listeners to decide whether comforted predictability can ever replace electrifying risk. For Howard Stern, the clock is ticking, and the next move will define whether panic becomes renewal or a permanent retreat. Children listening may not grasp every political nuance, yet they absorb the rhythm of courage and the aroma of fear faster than adults realize. When a voice once heralded as daring now trembles at the possibility of offending, young minds file that change away as evidence that growing up equals growing cautious. That assumption can dull their dreams before they bloom. They need elders who adapt without apologizing for creative fire, mentors who model how to add empathy without dousing spark. If Howard Stern ultimately shows that reinvention can balance honesty with respect, he will gift the next generation a map for responsible boldness. If he chooses instead to remain hidden behind velvet ropes, the lesson morphs into a warning. Fortune without backbone leaves a hollow ring. Greg Gutfeld's truth bomb is therefore larger than a media feud. It is a mirror reflecting the choices artists make when spotlight heat grows uncomfortable. The mirror stands ready for any viewer, child, teen, or adult to inspect their own reflection and ask whether they will chase popularity or principle when pressure mounts, and whether they will ever allow panic to silence their unique, indispensable voice. That single question may guide their entire creative life journey ahead.